Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Street Entrepreneurs Workshop. Today, we have it with us Rasul, who will be helping us build our marketing muscles. So, just like any sport, marketing requires practice, and I'm going to let you take it away. Thank you so much for preparing your presentation for us. And I understand you have a special workshop hat you put on. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome.
So, no, thanks so much, Juliana, for the introduction. I'm a hat guy, so I have different hats for different occasions, and so this is one of the two I might say that I do for presentations. But once again, thank you so much for inviting me to present building your marketing muscle, and just getting folks some insights and some ideas in terms of as we look at marketing on all the different spheres that marketing exists. What are some real key points to think about? And so what are some of the best orientation, so to speak, to have as folks think about marketing and what that means in its many forms? So just a little bit of quick background about myself. Currently, I work at an organization called Wacif, and it's a Washington Area Community Investment Fund. And I'm actually a business advisor, and I work with businesses from 6 to 7 different industries, from government contracting to food, entrepreneurs to consultants to media strategists to retailers, the whole gamut. So, and in those conversations, we're once again always having these discussions about how folks can really build up their skill sets and their capacity to, once again, just really allow the businesses to thrive in the marketplace. Prior to that, I actually ran my own marketing and strategy consultancy for about just a little over 10 years, in which I worked from startups to medium-sized businesses to international organizations to even Fortune 500 and even Fortune 100 organization as well. So my experience spans a lot of different areas, a lot of different businesses, and just marketing from A to Z. But just a little bit of foundational information. What I'm presenting today is not gospel. I constantly see myself as a student learning. And so the information that I'll be sharing, then later on we'll be having a discussion, is really just in terms of some of the things I've discovered and had proven valuable in my experience. There might even be some folks out there that have experiences that are different from mine that I would no doubt be able to learn from. So once again, I'm presenting just some information, some things to consider, and some things to think about. Marketing is dynamic, it's constantly evolving, it's changing, especially with the pandemic that the whole country and the world is going through. What marketing mean and what its purpose and what its value and its usefulness is changing and has a lot of fluidity to it. So that, as a part of the backdrop in terms of the presentation, kind of lays sort of the approach that we're going to take today as I go through this presentation and discussing what marketing is, and once again, how you can build your muscle and kind of bring a stronger, more acute skill set and understanding in terms of helping your business thrive through the marketing and business development lens. So in a lot of ways, before we enter into any type of conversation, we want to know, well, what is it exactly? You know, what is business development? What is finance? So the question here is, what is marketing? A couple of definitions here. From the American Marketing Association, they kind of discuss it as, you know, a set of activities and set of institutions that allow you to create, that allow you for creating and communicating, delivering and exchanging offerings that have value for your customers, clients, partners, stakeholders, society at large, and those who may be interested in your product or service. In a lot of ways, for the practitioner like myself, this is a little academic and may not have any direct applications, but part of the definition is kind of understanding that different organizations and different individuals and entities will sort of have this approach and understanding and their own perception about what marketing is. Philip Kotler has another definition as well. He's a pretty well-renowned marketer, university professor. I believe it's at Northwestern. Probably take a look at him in your time if you're interested. But once again, a well-known and renowned marketing professor and professional. And he has even a different spin on what marketing is himself. He states it as a social managerial process by which individuals and groups obtain what they want and need through creating, offering, and exchanging products of value with others. Once again, similar to the first one, a little bit of a mouthful. And then once again, depending on who you are and what kind of organization, how relevant and how valuable are these definitions in terms of, once again, day-to-day activities in terms of marketing and what that means in terms of your bottom line and what you're actually trying to accomplish. Now, this is my definition in terms of what marketing is based off my work and why I've used marketing and sort of the lens in which I look at it. And really, like, I see it as, and I try to really make it as very simple and clear and usable in terms of what is the value and what's the necessity of marketing. And really, it's about people having a decision and the choices that they have to make between those decisions. As we go out into the world, we wake up from sleeping and make a decision as we go to work or whatever the case is. There's all these decisions to make. Should I go left or should I go right? When I decide to get coffee, if you are going into an office and not working from home, am I buying Starbucks or am I buying somebody else? As an example, what are the decisions that people have to make between choices? And so marketing really is about that. Why should you choose A versus B versus D versus E, and so on and so forth? And so then the real question gets down to, in the marketplace, why you? Why your business? What is the reasons why someone should choose what you're selling or what you have to offer? So that really becomes a key question, a key foundational idea about, why you? So in very conventional terms, there's the school out there, and like I said, you almost go into any type of marketing workshop. The whole idea is like, the first thing to think about when marketing is what you have to do is to stand out from the crowd, which has a lot of validity to it. As we go through the rest of this, I have a slightly different variation on that, or a slightly different approach. But as I said before, there's no right or wrong in marketing, depending on what kind of business you have and what kind of skill sets you have and the team that you're working with, things of that nature. There's these different type of approaches to marketing. But once again, one of the sort of foundational thoughts and ideas around this is, what do we need to do to stand out from the crowd? Now, as I mentioned earlier, standing out from the crowd isn't necessarily a way that I approach this. And one of the reasons is for, as I'm about to lay out right here. Now, when we look at the crowd, okay, the crowd basically is everybody who's out in the marketplace who's offering something, selling shoes, selling cars, selling an experience, selling whatever it is. And so once again, this is just a corner of the snapshot of the world in terms of the crowd that you have to stand out from. So just in terms of the digital space, YouTube, 31 million YouTube channels. Once again, that's the crowd, right? 50 million YouTube content creators. Once again, that's the crowd. And an interesting piece of information, 500 hours of video are being uploaded per minute. So if you're a YouTube sort of influencer or a content creator, I mean, yours is along with 499 other hours of content is being uploaded for people to check out. LinkedIn, once again, if you're on that, 303 million active monthly users, 121 million active daily users, 3 million LinkedIn users that share content weekly. Also, once again, through Instagram, you have the statistics there. Podcasting, 1.5 million podcast platforms. So once again, we haven't even looked at Facebook. There's so many other digital platforms. This is simply YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and podcasting. And just the amount of the crowd that you're sort of having to compete, this is just a little small chapter or a small segment of what that looks like. So for me, this kind of gets into the approach that I recommend to clients and that I think makes a little bit more sense. Once again, this is just my opinion. It's not gospel, not anything that is right or wrong, but just once again, my own personal strategy versus trying to stand out from the crowd per se. Basically, I think one of the most valuable things to do is to find your tribe, find your community, go out and find folks that want what you have, that same values of you, have same outlook, are looking to create value in things you're trying to offer, find them and be a provider of solutions for them. Because once again, if you're trying to go out and just stand out in a crowd of all kinds of millions and millions of YouTube videos and so on and so forth in terms of digital, that's fine. But once again, I think the idea is to find out and find people who are looking for what you have to offer and build a community around that, versus trying to go out and be the most remarkable or be the most stand out or be the most extreme, what have you. Once again, if that's what you like, that's fine. But once again, I think one of the things, there's so much energy that you have to put into marketing. What's the fastest, easiest, most strategic, and I think the smartest way to actually go out and think about marketing? Once again, I think that's about finding your tribe and finding your community and being a person or individual or business that provides solutions for them. So in doing that, this is sort of the crux of what we get at when we actually look at what marketing is about or what marketing has value. And that's around the value proposition model, or the value proposition, which I'm pretty sure many of you have already heard and are familiar with to some extent. I mean, all that really, once again, some of the key indicators. And this model has different variations. So if you were to Google it or check it out, folks might have different variations on this. But once again, this is kind of the crux in terms of my approach in terms of what marketing looks like. You know what your product is, to who it matters, like what you're offering, what you're selling, who does that matter to? What's the pain point that you're alleviating? Because one of the key things is that if you're not sure why your customer or your stakeholder or your audience is struggling with, or what stresses them out, or what literally creates a headache for them, and you're not crystal clear about how your product or service or offering helps to alleviate that, then that becomes some of the initial troubles of having a successful marketing engagement. And then ultimately, once you solve that pain point, then what is the benefit it's creating? So as a result of someone says, my challenge and my stress is not being able to find, the right kind of tennis shoes. And because of the offering that your business has or creates, I can now find shoes that allow me to go and run faster and higher, or a comfortable sort of exercising routine because I have shoes that fit. Now, as that first part looks like, know what your product is. So what does that exactly mean? Of course, since it's, hey, well, I sell web design services, okay? But we need to go a little bit deeper into that. What are you actually in the business of? What are you actually selling? So a little list here to go a little bit deeper in terms of what does that actually mean? Are you selling, as an example, price or cost effectiveness? And just as an example of a companies that do that is Walmart. Once again, Walmart has very inexpensive wares. And so part of what they're selling is that price, cost effectiveness. Yes, there are retailers selling products and goods, but what they're selling to you is cost effectiveness and price inexpensiveness. Same thing with Domino's. You don't go to Domino's for the most quality products, so to speak, or the best ingredients in the world, but you're going there because Domino's Pizza pretty much has an inexpensive pizza that is a lower price point that they can kind of give to the masses. Are you selling customer service? The Geek Squad, which is a partner with Best Buy. And once again, once you buy something from Best Buy, whether it's a TV or a computer or whatever the case may be, if there needs to be a setup at your house, the Geek Squad can come to your house and set that up. So part of what they're selling to you is customer service. Are you selling a quality product? Once again, if you look at Gucci or Rolex, these are luxury items. Part of what you're buying is, once again, a higher quality of product or higher quality of wear. When you look at, are you selling convenience? And what does that convenience? Obviously with Amazon, the fact that they can deliver within, depending on what you buy, it can be next day, or it can even be that same day, which is extremely convenient. With 7-Eleven, convenience. Literally, they're located in every corner across cities. You can go there and it's just very convenient. You walk in, there's not a big store you have to roam around the aisles in. Very convenient in terms of what you can pick up. Uber, another great example of convenience. Once again, you open up the app, pretty easy to access. Someone comes right to your house, picks you up, and takes you to where you're going to go. Very convenient in terms of trying to get the kind of transportation to take you from point A to point B. Are you selling performance? If you look at Salesforce, which is a customer relation management system, once again, that allows you for your business to perform by doing customer aggregation. Once again, customer management. If you have large databases or customers that you're trying to engage, how do you actually organize those clients or folks you want to sell to once again allow you to perform, drive more revenue, customer acquisition, things of that nature. Intel, once again, another performance product. It's the thing that runs your computers. And so once again, it's a performance product. BMW, the age-old, talking about the ultimate driving machine, right? Engineering, once again, performance related. If you're selling customer experience, looking at Walt Disney, that's probably one of the single most phenomenal examples of customer experience, where they say there's no place like anything on earth. Walt Disney, once again, unique in terms of theme parks and just the amount of experience and resource they put into, sort of giving you that ultimate vacation, which is unparalleled, one can argue, across the world. Maybe you're selling lifestyle. If anyone is looking at lifestyle or lifestyle wear, the Adidas Yeezy, once again, a brand that's just been exploding probably over the last 4 or 5 years. Supreme, another streetwear, started in 1996, sort of when before streetwear was streetwear, a very, very popular brand in terms of high fashion and streetwear. And then Lululemon, once again, probably one of the earliest players in the athletic apparel market. And once again, that whole marketing in terms of what they're selling you, of course, athletic wear, but once again, it's a lifestyle brand in terms of what they're selling to you. So once again, beyond, yes, you're selling website design, or you're selling food, or you're selling cars, what are you actually selling, from performance to convenience to quality to customer service? Really understand what it is that, as I spoke to earlier, your tribe that's interested in what you're selling. And once again, what is it that they're looking for that you can provide? Now, the next key issue is, once again, to who does it matter in terms of what you're selling? Who wants convenience? Who wants quality? Who wants performance? Who wants a lifestyle product? What is a profile of those who want to buy what you are offering? So once again, you got to understand, who are those people out there that are looking to get what you have to offer, are looking for a pain point to be alleviated by the product or service that you can sell to them. Again, who are those individuals? What are they like? Where are they at? What are their profiles? What do they do? Where do they live? Things of that nature. And that kind of gets into this whole idea of who is your customer. And in that regard, you have a number of areas in terms of understanding what a customer segments look like. And that's, once again, geographic. Where do they live? If you're a local company, it might not necessarily be something like, well, our customers are in the Northeast region of the country, or they're in the Southwest part of the world, whatever the case may be. But it could be, once again, in terms of maybe if you live in a particular city, and maybe the kind of folks that you want to sell to are in a particular part of the city because of something particular happens. Say, for instance, if you're selling something, as an example, folks that live down, if you're here in DC, over by Navy Yard, maybe you want to sell something that's very closely connected to baseball or something like that. Maybe for some particular reason you want to focus your geographic strategy around Southwest Washington, DC, because of something that's connected to baseball or sports. Maybe you're trying to get a contract with the Nationals, and maybe you want to sell during baseball games. And so the geographic region that makes sense is for you in the particular city would be in Southwest DC, because once again, that's where the area that you want to sell, because once again, your product might be closely related to baseball, as an example. There's psychographic segmentation, which once again kind of gets into the mindset of your customer. What do they believe in? What are their values? What do they think about? What are their, how are they dispositioned and oriented? Once again, in terms of their mentality, what do they think about? What are their beliefs? What are their values? That's kind of the psychographic segmentation information that becomes helpful. And once again, in terms of understanding who your customer is. Behavioral segmentation, once again, is, what are people buying? What are they doing? How are they acting? What are they doing? What are their leisure activities? Things of that nature. Are they folks that like to go out to entertainment venues? Are they folks that like to go to retail and shopping? Do they like to do outdoor events? What are their behaviors? And then one of the more recent, a little bit emerging segmentations is technographic. And this is an explosion because of, once again, all of us have them everywhere we go, our cell phones. And with that, there's all kind of data to being captured, whether through Google or Apple or the apps that you use. people are grabbing that data and then once again being able to figure out what are your habits via the websites that you visit. With Amazon, they can track in terms of what you're buying, looking at your customer profile, past behavior, things of that nature. So it's all these different information, these different demographic segmentations, behavioral, psychographic, geographic, and technographic, that allows you to kind of create a snapshot because all this information can be gathered. And sometimes you don't even have to go technology oriented. The way you can find out is simply by interviewing folks. I have a product here, or if you have a food sample you're selling at maybe an organic market, as people are buying your wares, you can ask them, so what do you like about it? What do you typically purchase? Are you someone who likes these kind of foods? Or are you more sort of mainstream in terms of other types of products? So any opportunity to interview folks or just find out what the demographics are, what their behaviors, allows you to understand really who your customer is. And that ultimately obviously becomes important because that's going to be a big determining factor in terms of who you're selling to and who's going to be interested in what you have to buy. Now, we get down to what pain point are you alleviating? What problem is being addressed? What frustrations are you minimizing? Once again, being highly aware of what it is that gives people just absolute headaches when they wake up in the morning, or headaches when they're driving to the store, or headaches when they're in a shopping mall, or whatever the case may be. What is it that they're frustrated with? And is it that what you're offering allows you to be able to alleviate that problem? So one of the things is you have to be acutely aware of your customer's pain point or a pain point. Once you really understand what that is, that really allows you to once again find out if what you're offering is in alignment with that, and then those individuals potentially can become customers of yours. Now, as a result of that, once you eliminated the pain point, or you've attempted to, because that's what your product or service speaks to, then what benefit are you creating from that, right? So if the pain point is, I can't find a pretty user-friendly website development service or what have you, then you're saying we address that. And by doing that, we create the opportunity for you to create your website faster, in a much more effective manner, in a way that allows you to get to the market quicker than we would with any of our other competitors. So because you provide the opportunity to once again create an easier way for people to create a website that allows you to get into the market and start creating opportunities for folks to engage your brand in a faster way. So once again, eliminating that pain point then allows you to understand or communicate what the value you are able to create as a result of that. Now, here's a piece where really kind of allows you to kind of understand in a lot of way with everything we just talked about, in terms of, once again, what's the product that you're offering, who does it matter to in terms of the customers, what is a pain point they're alleviating, and then what value that you're creating. And this is sort of an exercise that you can kind of go through to kind of figure out, okay, what is it that my value is, and how is that relevant to potential audiences out there who are looking for services and looking to create ways that they can begin to, benefit, that allows them to move through the world in an easier, faster way, whether that's, addressing their well-being or addressing food products that might not be available, things of that nature. So once again, the model right here is this. So our, and you can name your business, helps. And who does it help? Once again, it helps folks that, that would like to jog but can't find shoes that are comfortable for them, as an example. And that's what, again, said, who wants to, once again, they want to be able to jog in an effective way by reducing, as an example, pain in their feet, and increasing the ability for them to jog longer, and allow them to really be able to, once again, exercise for an extended amount of time that allows them to get a healthier lifestyle in a much, much beneficial way. So once again, this is kind of a model that you can kind of use to, once again, kind of really figure out what it is that you're offering and how does that make sense. And this particular model here is not static. It could change, it could iterate. Once you kind of put these things together, you might find out that, this isn't really in alignment with what you're discovering. And so this is, once again, it's just an opportunity for you to begin to put some ideas down And once again, it could change over time, but this is kind of a starting space for you that kind of allows you, once again, to sort of put some ideas on paper and kind of say, okay, is this true or not? And you can go out to the market and test that. Now, there's so many types of marketing. I mean, this is not by any stretch of the imagination an exhaustive sort of list of the different types of marketing. So I just put a few here. Digital and social, folks sometimes use those interchangeably, but they're actually different in a lot of ways. Digital could be anywhere from SEO. It could actually be AdWords. It could actually be just a targeted marketing that you might actually have on a website. Versus social is if you're just, once again, some kind of way, maybe you have a campaign on Twitter, on Instagram, or maybe you're just putting content on Twitter, or maybe once again, you're putting a sort of content strategy through YouTube. But once again, social media and digital digital is social, but not all social is digital. Because once again, digital can be something like AdWords, or it could be SEO, which once again isn't necessarily social media oriented. Guerrilla marketing, once again, is primarily offline. Lots of times, if you want to put together a street team, back before the pandemic, and sometime hopefully in the future when folks are able to get back to events, sometimes that guerrilla marketing, you have an event that's coming up. Maybe you're an up-and-coming artist, as an example, whether you're a singer or whatever it may be. You kind of get a team to put together some buzz out in the streets. And that's an opportunity, once again, to low costs. And just kind of for those who might be starting out and don't have a huge budget, kind of guerrilla marketing allows you to have that type of engagement. Of course, there's influencer marketing. Once again, if you're on any type of social channel, whether that's TikTok or once again Instagram or YouTube, and you've amassed a following, whether that's you're a micro influencer, which I believe that's from 1,000 to 5,000, or you're a macro influencer, which I believe that's I think above 500,000. But there's all these different levels of influencers. They have a following, and maybe you want to give them a product to speak to. But once again, the question becomes, going back to that earlier question, why you? There has to be an alignment between who you are and what the influencer does. Are there value alignments? Is it influencer? Is it something that would be something that's natural to them, or is it going to feel forced? So once again, when you're engaging or marketing your wares and reaching out to an influencer, there has to be an alignment, once again, in terms of what you have to offer. And what you have to offer is in alignment with that influencer's audience. So once again, there has to be some level of engagement with that individual, kind of have a conversation, discuss, hey, what I'm offering, does that make sense? Are you comfortable with it? All these different types of things. There's direct marketing, which is one of the more traditional sort of old school sort of marketing, still works in a lot of ways, which is basically when you send out mailers, a lot of insurance companies, or even you're like Verizon and folks like that will send mailings into you saying, hey, we got a new deal. We can get you wired into your house for $89.99 for the first 3 months free, get Disney Plus, et cetera, et cetera. But once again, that direct marketing is through mail, and sometimes even like on television, once again, just commercials. Once again, that's direct to the consumer. And then there's also the content. Maybe you're a blogger, or once again, maybe even a YouTube influencer. Once again, what type of content are you putting out there? Maybe even another type of content is if you're on a crowdsourcing platform, or crowdfunding. That's content as well. That's another way to think about marketing in terms of introducing folks to your product and or your service. Now, the challenges to effective marketing. These are some of the things that we always have to think about, because once again, these can be the barriers in terms of what's going to allow you to reach your objectives. What are the things that are actually going to allow you to reach your goals? And once again, if you're a startup, you're going to have one entire set of challenges and speed bumps you're trying to work through, versus a business that's maybe 5 or 6 years old. They've kind of relatively understand what their niche is, and they're really trying to drive revenue. They're trying to scale. And so their challenges are going to be different from, once again, from a company that might have an idea they've got a little bit of traction and they're really trying to get they're trying to enter into the market and get a little bit of customer engagement, even just maybe even grow their customer base. So one of the things is that market validation, that's for a startup, is, have you done enough research? Have you engaged enough people to find out, this is the product I have, what do you think about it? For instance, the most easiest thing to think about is food. You kind of got a special kind of dipping sauce or something, and you go out to the market and folks taste it, what is the feedback that you're getting? Is it delicious? Are they saying, wow, I've never tasted anything like this? So that's an opportunity to want to go and figure out, to validate, is there a real place in the market for what you have to offer? Because if that's not if there's no foundational elements around that, and there's a market, you can do all the marketing that you want, let people know that you're out there, but you're out essentially marketing for something that nobody wants. So one of the challenges, once again, to really having some great marketing is that you're marketing a product that nobody wants, or marketing a product that has really limited value to particular audiences or individuals. So once again, really finding out for startups, is there a real need or a want or desire for your product or your service in the marketplace? Your marketing approach is designed mainly around broadcasting versus meaningful engagement. One of the things that people do is that they want to sell, right? They want to sell. They think they got a great product, they got a great service, and they basically just want to say, hey, how much would you like, or whatever the case is. Now, meaningful engagement, once again, goes back to that idea of those segmentations. Really building up relationships with folks and really finding out what is it that they're really interested in. If we looked at the idea of that psychographic and that behavioral, who are people? What are the kind of things that they really talk about, things that are meaningful for them? Because if you can really find out how you can really generally improve people's lives or really eliminate a real serious pain point, that can be just a load of value for you. But once again, that's going to only happen with meaningful engagement. That might mean a lot of market research. That might be a lot of question asking, to a certain extent, going back to the market validation piece and finding out, what exactly is it that people are looking for? How can we create a relationship? Because one of the ways that business sustainability happens, and one of the best ways to just really create ongoing revenue, is to have repeat customers. And if you really have customers that love what you do because you really hit the nail on the head in terms of what they're looking for value, that's just invaluable. You just can't replace that. So once again, just going out and selling or hoping that people want what you have might not really be the way to go. And once again, I think this is another part of this as well. Marketing is just focused and oriented around transactional activity before it's focused on relationship building. Of course, when you're selling something, it's obviously going to be transactional. But if you're getting to the transaction before you're hyper and acutely aware in terms of what it is that people want and what they really need, it can be a bit of a hindrance. Me personally, when I'm going to a store, as an example, and there are those individuals who stop you on the street and say, hey, we have this and that, that's just trying to get you into a transaction. Hey, sign this piece of paper or whatever the case is, versus actually having questions about, what is it that you're interested in? What can we do? Really, really being sincere and trying to build those relationships. So that's not something that can be a challenge to effective marketing, because, you're trying to market something to someone that there's no relationship there. And with so many offerings out there, so many options, you can, a click of the mouse, you can go to anywhere and buy anything. So really getting people to believe in, and really, again, as I spoke earlier, finding that tribe that really becomes crucial, because when you have a relationship, there's a commitment there. And that's one of the things that you want. Who are folks that are committed to what you have to sell and really committed to buying from you? Another important one, which is often overlooked, is the idea of asking the right questions. Once again, the obvious question is, what is it about that I'm selling that people want? Once again, that's the whole question, the foundational premise around this. And once again, that becomes a question that you have to answer. And then the question becomes, are the people I'm talking to, are they interested in convenience, or are they interested in quality? You have to be ready to ask all kinds of different questions. You can't come to the table assuming anything. And that's one of the things about if you've been in business long enough, that sometimes you come to the table, or sometimes you're going out into the marketplace with certain assumptions. And then when those assumptions don't necessarily meet your expectations, then that's when a challenge can kind of happen. So part of it is really asking the right questions, or asking good questions, so you can really get that much more clear in terms of, you might be thinking about A, when in reality, the answer is B. So once again, asking the right questions allows you to really be able to sit in a place where you can have effective marketing, because instead of going west, you actually ask the right question and say, you know what, is this the right direction I should be going in? And then based off of feedback and engagement with the market, you actually should be going south. So once again, asking the right questions allows you to really have the best kind of marketing, because then you know that you're going in the right direction. And then following best practices versus having a distinct perspective. Now this one, depending on, sort of the kind of work that you do or the kind of environment you're in, may or may not sort of impact you. But lots of times when people talk about, hey, what are the best practices for X, Y, and Z? Now, if everybody's doing best practices and everybody's doing the same thing, then what's the real value, or where's the sort of breakthrough that your product can potentially have? So I think what really makes sense, and once again, it may take time to sort of get there, is your product or your service or your brand or your idea needs to have a very distinct perspective. And because you as an individual, as a business owner, marketer, what have you, you have to take that in consideration. What is the uniqueness about your life journey that allows you to have a very unique perspective that someone might not be thinking about or have overlooked, because once again, they didn't have your distinct perspective. So that's one of the things that is really important about this very last one, is that there's so much talk about best practices. But I think the thing to explore that has a lot of relevance is, once again, bringing a distinct perspective. Now, one of the things with everything that's kind of on the table, everything that we kind of talked about in terms of, what is marketing, looking at segmentation, what is the value proposition? Are you asking the right questions? Did you do enough research if you're a startup for market validation? Do you understand? Are you crystal clear about the pain point of your customer? Even if you've been in business for 10 years and the market has changed. As an example, once again, unfortunately, with the pandemic that we're experiencing, people's what their pain points have completely been flipped over on its head. So as a result of that, what are the new pain points? What are the new concerns? What are the new values that people are looking for as a result of these things? So once again, whether you're a startup or a business that's been doing things for upwards of 5 to 8 to 10 years, once again, just really understanding who the audience is, what behaviors are they exhibiting that demand what you're selling, that they have a need for, all these different types of things. So I just wanted to just run a quick case study to kind of put all of this into a very succinct sort of situation here to kind of get an idea in terms of what we're talking about. So a social media startup focused on healthcare services is facing a crucial point as it tries to establish a niche in a market dominated by well-known competitors. Nearly 2 years after entering the market, the company's founders are concerned. While the company has spent heavily on promotion, the number of users joining this new social media outlet have lagged. With funds running low and their financial backers growing restless, the company founders have limited time to grow their business. So now the case is, based on everything that we've talked about, what could be the challenge? What could be the reason that this is happening? Let's speak to a couple of things here in terms of what might be the challenge, would be the problem. One of the things it says right here, while the company has spent heavily on promotion, they're promoting a particular value, a particular service. Now the question is, are they clear about the pain point of their customer? Maybe they haven't defined that. Maybe what they think is value isn't. So the question is, if we were to go and find out from this startup, did they do, as an example, enough in terms of the market validation piece? We don't know. Once again, there's no right or wrong. These are just some things to think about as we look at what are the marketing challenges and why is a company sort of on this downward spiral, so to speak, what is happening. It says it talks about it's a niche in a market dominated by well-known competitors. So now you have a business that's competing against other well-known competitors. So that means, once again, have they differentiated themselves enough? Maybe they haven't done that. Maybe they haven't brought, a distinct perspective. Maybe what they're offering is just similar to everything else that's out there. So once again, the question is, have they really identified what that pain point is? Is that pain point not being met by these other competitors in the marketplace? Maybe that's an issue as well. And lastly, like I said, there's so many different things can happen here. I just wanted to cover just a handful. Another issue is around the idea of, are they asking the right questions? As an example we talked about earlier. Are we really addressing the needs of our customers? Is this something that, company A or company X isn't offering? So once again, are they asking the right questions to sort of get to the crux of the reason why, people are leaving their business and they're not growing? So once again, this is just a quick case study, once again, to kind of cover the different types of things in terms of, what is going to allow you to really have some marketing effectiveness, what's the orientation you need to have as it pertains to, once again, building your marketing skill sets. And key considerations in terms of, things that you want to think about as you go through all your marketing work, building your businesses, product launches, things of that nature. Once again, you want to think of your audience as customers, not as consumers. Once again, consumers is simply about the idea of consuming. Customers bring to the table customs. What are their values? What do they believe? What do they think? Especially in the pandemic, obviously consumerism has shrunk. So now we can't just think of the idea of consuming. What are people's daily practices? They're staying home. Maybe they're creating quality time by going to the park, things of that nature. So switching around the idea, folks aren't just consumers, but actually customs, and are looking at their customers and what are the ways that you can sort of speak to their values and really kind of create that behavioral understanding about who they are and what they're about. The marketing landscape is dynamic and fluid. You must act accordingly. Once again, marketing is not something that's static. It's constantly moving, changing, evolving. The pandemic, once again, unfortunately, has been a real reality around that. What are people's behaviors changing as a result of these external issues around the pandemic? And how do we adjust to that? If you feel that you've reached the peak and there's no more else to learn, that would probably be not the way I'd even recommend to sit in a marketplace like that. Market effectiveness is not a linear process. It is iterative. You can't say that, I've marketed X, Y, and Z and kind of keep going. Maybe if your marketing, your discovery is not working, you have to go back to the beginning. So it's a constant loop of discovery and finding out what works. You talk to folks who've been in business for a long time, it might have taken them a year or 2 or 3 to really understand where the bulk of their marketing opportunity is and sort of really had to get into that space. Finding mentors and advisors and a support network that you can build relationships with and can help you learn, grow, and develop. The old saying, no individual is an island. You have to depend on other folks because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And having advisors and mentors to help fill in those gaps can really be helpful. And just having folks to support you, just whether it's mother, father, loved one, girlfriend, colleagues, what have you, really having folks around you that can help you through those tough times is absolutely important. Don't compare your marketing efforts with others. You are an individual. Your company is unique. Unique set of life experiences, unique understanding in terms of markets and products. And so when you're comparing yourself to others, they're doing that, I should do it too. Key consideration, I don't think that's going to be very valuable because once again, with their set of circumstances is different from yours, and just trying to mimic other folks isn't going to really be a practice that you kind of want to engage on. Have patience and celebrate the small wins. Those who are building businesses, they don't happen overnight. People says, a sensation that happened overnight, definitely never the case. Those folks that kind of blow up out of nowhere, they've probably been on the grind, been just making it happen for months, weeks, months, and years on end. And so when it seems like nothing's going right, always take the opportunity to celebrate those small wins because they are wins. And those multiple little bitty wins over time really create kind of big impact and allow you to kind of see the progress over your journey. So once again, business is a journey. It's definitely not a destination. The market is constantly fluid. It's dynamic. It's moving. Constantly be in a space of learning and really trying to figure out what the best practice is in terms of for you as an individual, not necessarily as it means for other folks. And really just trying to figure out, what works best for you. And so, as they say, it's not a destination. You're not going to get to a point and say, hey, I've made it. Maybe you sell your business if it's profitable, and now you're going to start something else. And so if you go into a whole different arena, that's a whole new set of circumstances and things to learn about. So once again, always think about the journey in terms of as long as you're constantly learning and being able to challenge yourself in new ways, you're always going to be successful. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon and learning some of the discovery and kind of go over with the ideas around building your marketing muscle and some of the ways that you need to orient yourself to create some success for you with respect to, getting folks exposed to your product, selling that value proposition, and then once again, creating prosperity for your business. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the Q&A and discussion afterwards.
I'm on mute. You guys didn't hear any of that. No,
it happens to the best of us.
Unless you're a lip reader, you might have to listen to what I just said once again. So I think this might be the best workshop your hat has ever seen. I dare say this has been an amazing workshop. Thank you.
No, thank you. No problem.
There's a lot of questions. I'm not really sure where to begin, but I think I might just do it in order today.
Okay.
So how do marketing and sales work together, and how are they different?
Okay, yeah, marketing and sales. Marketing, once again, I go back to what I covered in the slides. Marketing is helping people to make a decision, right? It doesn't actually become the point of sale where the transaction happens. Within marketing, there's a lot of storytelling as an example, right? It's getting people acclimated to why is it worth even considering, right? Marketing is there's all these different ways in which we can think about it. And one of the jobs of marketing has multiple different layers and levels of, what it's useful for. One of those things is simply awareness, right? You have to market because if someone is frustrated, as I mentioned, an easy one is like, I can't get the type of shoes that are really comfortable when I go running. If they don't know about your product, then they can't buy it. So what marketing serves is the opportunity for people to learn about, okay, and depending on who you talk to, it can be anywhere from 6 to 9 touches. People might become aware of it, but they're like, I don't know. I saw something else. I think I might check that out. So people are going to go into the marketplace, right? They're going to figure out, well, this looks good, but maybe there's something else out there that's better. And so before you can actually go into this transaction of selling means you're actually exchanging the good right then and there. So marketing is getting people aware of what's happening and communicating to them why what you have is a match for them. And once that happens and people's like, you know what, this is it, then the sales happens. And sale is really, they've kind of already gone through that process. They've done some research, they've checked out the competitors or people who might be similar, and it's like, you know what, I like it, I really want to buy it. And then it's a matter of, sort of having this conversation about maybe specific things. Well, is there a warranty? If I buy it, what is the return? And that's when you get into the sale. The sale is more of a transaction. Mm-hmm. Marketing is more about awareness and brand building and really exposing people.
Yeah, and speaking about the brand, it seems like more and more people are selling their brand, right? So their product could cost pennies, but they're selling you the idea of what it is, right? Like Lululemon.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest. People can see through those leggings, right? But anyways, it's all about what wearing Lululemon says about you, right? Yep. And I'm not talking about, the unethical labor of
right. Yeah. That's a whole.
I'm not a fan. But point is, it's what it says about you.
Yeah. And to your point, Julia, which is great. And that's, once again, as I said earlier, it's marketing is like anything. It's a universe, right? And you can't cover it all in an hour. But what you just got to is a whole idea of storytelling, right? People And the idea of, and that really plays in a lot of ways around lifestyle, but also other ways as well. But the story, like you said, Lululemon, the storytelling and what it means and how it makes you feel, and it goes beyond just a product. Like you said, people are selling their brand, which is themselves, and it could be their experience, their life, and they're like, oh my gosh, I identify with that. Oh my God, I went to the same school as you did and had the same experience in college. And then people are buying the story, which to some degree may have some interaction or some depthness with the product. Hopefully it does to some extent, but you're exactly right. That's where the whole, which is once again, a whole different conversation, a whole different workshop around storytelling and marketing. But what you're talking about is exactly on point. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's just get into that just a little bit. So in the age of social media, right? I heard during another workshop, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product, right? There's all these influencers that are really selling their brand, right? And they're making money from advertising and from followership, right? So in this kind of era where there really isn't a product you're paying for per se, what are you paying for? Like what is the value, right? There's the how it makes you feel, right? What it says about you. Like, can you get a little bit more into that? So
Sure. If you just, one of the things that, if I'm a student of history, whether it's 150 years ago or 5 years ago, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, what have you, people, you would be buying a product. You'd be buying something you could touch and feel. All these social channels didn't exist. And so you had no choice. People didn't care about the personality because there wasn't any way to broadcast yourself. So now the whole idea of what value is in the last 10, 15 years or so has been dramatically changing, right? The value just isn't like, for instance, Nike back in the day. It's like, oh, I love Nike shoes. But now Michael Jordan, as an example, so the whole thing, be like Mike, right? It's like, if you buy these tennis shoes, you can, even though you won't necessarily, but you can maybe act like him and play like him, but it's more of a feeling, it's an emotion. And that's because that is able to be done everywhere. You can get on television, get on television, streaming services, whatever the platform, and you can communicate. And it's almost like mini theater, right? You go to the movies back in the day and you, oh my God, I identify with the character. And so people are creating, to some degree, loosely, mini movies about themselves. People are paying for entertainment. They're paying to laugh. I mean, Patreon, as an example, people are paying other folks to just do their art, and because the barrier to entry is lower, because they don't have to go to the Hollywood model, blah, 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 they can get on their channel, tell jokes, live their life, or whatever the case is, and people are paying for that. So these things, these intangible assets, like you just mentioned, influence or entertainment or laughing or feeling good, is something that people can sell. And that's only been made possible by what I mentioned earlier, either through YouTube or Instagram or all these different channels where people can come and kind of, communicate to the world, this is who I am. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Right. And, one of the recurring questions that I have seen is, how do I engage influencers in selling my product or service? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah. And I mentioned it earlier, and it's about the idea of understanding. And when I say understanding the customer, I really like to say stakeholder, right? Because sometimes the influencer they're not going to buy it per se. They're just going to look at it and be like, ooh, I dig that. I like that. Yeah, I want to sell this because whatever the case is. So in that regard, your marketing has to also look at potential partners, right? And they're like, okay, I want to partner with you, but why? So part of it is do research, hang out on that influencer's YouTube channel, watch our videos, just really understand who they are, what they sell, just really study them, and then when you engage them, because we're human beings, and on some level we all have egos. Imagine you get on, Julia, and someone's like, "Oh my God, Juliana," da, 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 and they know you, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. And that is flattering. Like there's a guy, his name is Nardwar. He's out of Canada, and he's probably the most phenomenal interviewer of artists. Nuadwar, Bernardwar. And from Pharrell to Jay-Z to, you can pick any artist. They are blown away by this guy because his research is phenomenal. They're like, oh my God, how do you know about this stuff? And do that with an influencer, like research them, like what are they talking about? Watch all the videos. And then when you reach out to them and you drop a real, oh my God, yo, let's hang out. We're friends. You know about me. And that's the way I would recommend to connect with an influencer. Almost when you come to them, know about them. You can talk about, and I think that can really alleviate or minimize the barrier in terms of how do I connect with this person.
Well, does it get creepy?
You know what? It does. And so a part of the research in terms of, once again, is if what you're offering is a natural fit, then it doesn't become creepy, or hopefully it doesn't become creepy because the person, they get it, right? They say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And once again, why does that person, it goes back to the very first thing I say, why you? Because you've researched, it makes sense. There's an alignment with their values. If they're, let's say it's a comedian, right? And you say, hey, I was watching with you mentioned Dave Chappelle, blah, 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 blah. Do you remember the time when you talked about someone? So, what do you engage them, almost, okay, before you engage them on, hey, I want you to peddle, I want you to sell, I want you to, I want you to speak to my product. Just have a regular conversation with them. It might take a month or two to just, dropping a comment periodically in their thing. Oh, I like that, whatever the case is. So sometimes, and as I mentioned that earlier, don't go straight to the transaction, right? You have to go to that relationship building part. Build that relationship first, and then go, because if you go, and that, once again, that will hinder your marketing effectiveness, once again, the engagement, if you go straight to the transaction.
I agree.
You gotta build into the relationship. And that's where the part I also mentioned, that patience comes in, because sometimes you can't just right off the bat, hey, I got a great product. I think you should you put it on your next YouTube video. And they're
but
like,
at the same time, doesn't just that seem disingenuous? Like, are you trying to build a relationship, or are you trying to get them to do something for you? Right? Like, I just personally am like, if someone's going to ask me something, do it from the top. That way I can save you time, whether I can do it or not,
Right.
If you want to talk to me, just talk to me. Right.
Right.
But I guess I'm speaking personally.
No, and it's, I think you're right. And this is what I said earlier. It said, don't, have some patience, don't get frustrated. And that's the other part, is everybody has a different kind of personality. Some people like, hey, just get straight to the point. I don't want any soft, I don't want any, other people want you to build a relationship. And sometimes that's why I tell marketing is an iterative process. You're going to go out and you're going to strike out. That's just the nature of it. You're going to strike out like, oh, you're creepy, or this doesn't, or you're going to meet that person who says, oh, wow, I dig it. And you're not going to know. And that's part of the whole market validation, going out and asking questions. And, this, Julianne, the whole time beta testing. You're beta testing your sales pitch, right?
Right.
And as you're beta testing your sales pitch, you find out what works and doesn't work.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're like, oh, you know what? I don't like when someone responds to me, is like, hey, get to the point. You're like, you don't like that. You say, so I need to find someone who likes relationship building, or be that person like, you know what? I love it. It tastes good. Cookie blizzard. Let's go. And you can just, so we're all different. We got to kind of figure out what that is.
Awesome. So let's get to an example. So let's say that street entrepreneurs were trying to get Mark Cuban to be one of our cross-posting partners at this year's 2020 Street Pitch. How might we go about engaging Mark Cuban, and what might that pitch look like?
That is a very, very good question, and a challenging one. Now it's interesting. It's almost the way I would approach it is, as an example. So Mark Cuban has been a guest host or a guest shark on Shark Tank, right?
Oh, Mark Cuban is a shark. He's a shark on
Yes.
Shark Tank. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because there's a bunch of, you know, there's different ways that, you know, he's obviously the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's been on Shark Tank, and so and there's different ways you can go about it. So if you want to go, let's say one of the way you wanted to test, say, okay, let's do this. Find out, what kind of products has he validated or invested in? And a lot of those you can find on YouTube. Like, what are the products that he's been interested in Shark Tank? Like, this is when you get your spreadsheet, right? As an example, this is a tactical aspect of it. So you say Mark Cuban, the things he's like, I'm out, and the products that he's like, you know what, I'm in. And you really just put a whole list together. I would say get anywhere from 15 to 20 products which he wanted to partner with, and even find out, are any of those gone to markets, where are those products at, and then say, hey, Mark, you know, we loved your show, or we love you being on Shark Tank, blah, blah, blah. You know, we kind of really saw that of the past 3 or 10 years, whatever you've been on it, you've really you've been behind these kind of products, or whatever the case is. Yeah. We have something that we think allows, or whatever the case is, and just, you know, because I could be wrong, but I'll just speak from my perspective. When someone comes to me and they've done their research, and we actually talk about this at Wacif. We talk about the idea of credibility, right? Yeah. Because we ask them questions, and based off the responses, and Mark he's seasoned, right? He's going to be able to see through the BS real quick. He's like, you're not real. You're just trying to get on TV, whatever. Versus somebody that comes through and said, oh, wow, they researched the 30 businesses I invested in. And they share some stats and da-da-da. And then
I can put together a little pie chart.
Yeah. And then
and we're gonna have this entrepreneurs. All that. For those of you who don't know, Street Pitch is like American Idol meets Shark Tank.
There we go.
If those two shows came together and had a baby, it'd be called Street Pitch.
Bam.
But more to come on that. Let's ask a couple more questions.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
How do you validate your market before you launch? And how much validation should you have before you launch a digital product?
Okay. What was the first question?
How can you validate your market before you launch? And how much validation should you have?
Okay.
You launch a digital product.
A digital product. Okay. So the first one, I'll give an example of the past client that I had, and this is a food product, and digital is definitely different in terms of, obviously it's a different product, but it allows you, there's the same kind of path that you can sort of create for yourself. So this gentleman that I was working with, he was actually consulting out of Tesla. He was doing lean management, whatever the case is. And so he had this product. It was basically a salsa product. And he just basically went to different people and said, hey, I have this salsa. I'd love for you to taste. Let me know what you thought about it. And people loved it. I mean, there's a whole story that back there at some point in time, if anyone wants to grab me in the street, we can talk about it, or Juliana, you and I can talk about it. But anyways, he basically, people loved it so much that they said, you know what? I don't know if it was a person or persons, but it got to the point where they're like, oh my God, I have a friend that loves this. I would love to send that to them. Can I buy it, or what is it? And as soon as that person said, can I buy it, right? And this doesn't happen in every situation, might be different for different folks. But as soon as that person said, oh, can I buy it? I want to send it. So the person said, oh. So as soon as you get the conversation, and if you want to be aggressive and say, hey, I'd love to put it together, or whatever the case is, you can say, I'll sell to you, what have you. But as soon as you make that first sale, it's validated, right?
I think I finally understand what the difference between marketing and sales are to me. So like marketing, it's people are asking to buy it. Yeah. Like you have gotten so good about your searchability and about the awareness of your product that people are searching for it. They're asking to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. And sales is like you're convincing people to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's what you're saying, you can take that is that versus like the telemarketer, right? The telemarketer is getting on the line. Hey, we got this. You want to buy that? They're not marketing anything. They're trying to sell you. They don't know anything about you. And that's what we're marketing, like I said earlier, the whole segmentation, right? You want to learn about the person. You want to selling just means it's just numbers. It's like, I'm literally going to talk to 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And of those 5,000 people versus, the marketing allows you to, develop a relationship, find out who it is. But I think what you just mentioned is excellent. It's definitely like that. So and going back to your question, once you have a sale, once you have a transaction, you now have a business. Okay, you don't even need 3,000. Once you have someone, now the question is, it's sustainable, because then can that person keep coming back, and can you turn that one person to 2 to 10 to 10,000 to 500,000, so on and so forth. But as soon as you have that first transaction, you have a business.
Right, okay? Right.
Yeah, you have a business. And so it's the same thing, whether it's software or food or whatever the case is. And the validation piece for the digital product is, once again, is just like, however that looks like, that someone, if you want to give free service to the first 10,000 people or whatever the case is, then once we hit, then the whole freemium model, right? If you get enough people to buy, who are interested in it, and you understand, then when does that conversation switch to, oh, I totally want to buy this? And that can happen a number of different ways. But really, once you find out you've got a mass of people that like it, right, and you can communicate to other people, like, look at all this, testimonials, whatever. We have 5,000 people that are using our product, and they're like, oh, wow. And then people want to find. Then that makes it easier to transition. If the person isn't asking to buy it, then you're like, look here, we have 5,000 people, and then we can start charging for this. You can either go out to investors, or or angels, or whatever, if you want to generate revenue. Yeah, that's a response I have to that.
Yeah, and I almost feel like the market has will change, right? Like 5,000 people using your digital product was huge, but now there's so much.
Right. Yeah.
5,000 people is not that much, right?
Yeah. Right. That's true. That's definitely true.
So I'm sure it varies by industry, and also how much money you're spending, right? So if you have a product that's 5,000, okay, one customer could validate you, right? But if you're selling, cake pops, and your one customer is your mom, you know what I mean? You might need a stranger to buy a couple cake pops, or a couple strangers, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right. It's like, I have a customer.
Totally.
Assumes so.
And like I said earlier, you'll say your mom buys it, but okay, but there's a business. But once again, there's a difference between, you have a business, but is it viable, right? Just because you have a business, it doesn't mean it's viable. It doesn't mean it's sustainable. It doesn't mean that it has scalability, right? It doesn't mean one person buying it. There's all kinds of businesses that have been around and then they disappear because they lost the viability. I mean, you can just look at Border Books, Border is the one we're not a business. You can look at all the business, Kodak, they were viable for a while, but then something changed and no one wanted it anymore. So you got a thing that allows you to continue to be sustainable and is viable, because that's why I said the idea earlier about marketing is fluid and dynamic. It constantly changes, it moves, it evolves. And yes, I have one, but now I have 5. Now I have 5 million, but then next year, oh, wait. And then look at the pandemic, right? Businesses that have been around for a long time. And all of a sudden, this external happening just, oh my God. So now there's a whole new set of marketing challenges, new customer behaviors, right? People are afraid to go into the streets because of the virus. And now they want to have, I didn't care about sanitation before. Now I'm heavily focused on it. So it's all about understanding that, yes, I have 100,000, but that could change, either positive or negative. So you have to constantly be in a state of learning, understanding, testing. And, it's challenging and can be difficult, but, it's like, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, then that's how you're wired. You kind of like it because, that's how you're wired. So, but that's kind of the nature of it.
That's awesome. Okay. So a couple more questions.
Sure.
Promise, just a couple more. So, if you have a potential customer list, how might you start segmenting it? Is there a technology that can help you do this, or does it have to be manual?
Does it have to be, what was the last part?
Manual. So I think what this person is referencing is like, let's say you have a mailing list of like
Mhm.
maybe 4,000 people, right? And I mean, they're all like the same. You have very little information on them, right?
Right.
Is there technology that allows you to input the emails and output data so that you can better understand your mailing list and your potential customer segments?
I guess the one question I would ask is that, okay, so there's a number of different ways that, number one, where did that list come from? Was that list aggregated by them, or did they buy that list from somebody? That becomes very important, because if you just bought the list, I mean, there's so many tools out there, right, to do X, Y, and Z. So I personally have never, let me think that I remember, that goes in and segments a list. Like, for instance, if you, like, for instance, we HubSpot as an example, right? There's a lot of inputs that you can create that kind of help segment, for instance, revenue. What is your ethnic background? Is your business, is it incorporated? There's all these different fields, right? That's baked into the system, that as you get customers to input information, bam, it's already segmented. You already have a customer profile based off of that. So if you have a CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, what have you, that kind of is built into that. Versus if you go and buy just a data set from some third party and it just give you some information, I personally, it could be out there, but I'm not, once again, I don't know everything
Right.
that's out there.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of something that you could buy from a third party list and then they kind of segment it out. The other way is that if you go and build your own list, you know, you on email subscribers, you have you put out a newsletter, and then that way you can kind of segment your list that way. You know, there's different fields and different ways that you can put that together. Like, you know, you can, different ways that you can create your own kind of segmented list. Like, for instance, with going back to the salsa company, the person who they worked with a lot of technology, but because on the front end, they are much personal. And a lot of this goes back to your personality. He's much more personable. He really wanted to build that relationship on the front end. So he just did a lot of just at the organic market, you know, inputting stuff on his spreadsheet. He says, okay, so where do you live? What are you interested in? You know, and once again, it's a part of which I didn't get into this is like, you know, what is, as you as an individual, how are you wired? Because some people, you know, everyone wants to be digital, you know, maybe it's a generational thing, whatever, which is fine. Other people want to have more of a hands-on. And so how you build lists and then how you sort of create understanding of there's all these different ways. And so he just wanted to, once again, if he's at the organic market, it created an opportunity for him to build those relationships, see the face. You know, of course, it's different now in the pandemic. You have a whole different approach. But you know, that's a whole nother conversation. How are you marketing via digital platforms, Zoom and webinars and things of that nature? Which that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I think it depends on where you got your list from, how it came about, and that kind of, I think I would have to know a little bit more about that. But you know, that's sort of my response and thoughts around that.
Right. So it sounds like you have to do it manually, essentially.
Yeah.
You have to slowly gather information about your users and update that information either into a spreadsheet or which could be an early version of your CRM, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rasul, talk a little bit about CRMs, right? Salesforce versus HubSpot, because you really can't have marketing without data, and CRMs are a tool of gathering customer data. What do you recommend?
I think in terms of just, because CRM, depending on, depending on if you're a solopreneur or if you got a 10-person team, or even if you're, a small office of 18 to 50 folks or whatever, and, the amount of resource you have to invest in things can be different. So for the less resourced, so to speak, I mean, there's all kinds of, the data to gather really is finding out, without going into the segmentation piece, psychographics and all that stuff, which is larger resources, is, go into your Instagram. There's all kind of dashboards that you can just get that are just free, right? And part of that is just finding out one way to figure out what kind of content is getting traction out there, right? You might not be getting sort of this profile in terms of what they believe, so on and so forth. But I would think about just putting together a content strategy. Number one, just putting out content, whether it's photos or you're blogging or you're writing or whatever the case is. And then once you kind of find that, like for instance, on Instagram, if someone comments and said, "Oh my God, I love this," then you can reach out to them and say, "Hey, what did you like about it?" or whatever, as a way to do it. And then from there, that allows you to sort of really see who's engaging. But just a lot of information, a lot of data, just find out what kind of content is resonating. And then over time, you can start doing a little bit more of sort of archaeological work, reaching out to folks, find out who they are, but you just want to find out what kind of content is moving. So if you're getting 5,000 views, there's no way on earth you're going to know who those 5,000 people are, whatever the case is. But this content is great. You're like, oh, wow. And so you just create similar content or content that's in that venue. So really, you just, whatever you can do, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all these platforms have built-in, data analytics and dashboards that Hootsuite and all the others that are out there. And just start there, just finding out what kind of traction that your data or your content is creating, and just get numbers, just get numbers. And then once from there, then, if it makes sense, then you can start doing it, and that might be a year from now or 2 years from now, whatever the case is. And then it has to be I would recommend to be multi-pronged. Is that also the newsletter or any type of content that allows you to sort of, have some engagement? Like number one, building up your email list. In terms of a digital strategy, your email list is another way that you can really just begin to sort of get access to folks and say, hey, we're doing this. Would you like to be on our newsletter list? And they're like, yeah. And then, let's say you amass, to start 100 names. And then, hey, we're running a survey, we're running an experiment, we're running a social campaign, X, Y, and Z. Would you like to be a part of it? And if you are, there's all kinds of, which is a whole nother workshop I could probably do as well, is how do you use your email to then email your newsletter and email strategy to really, once again, just gather the bodies or gather the data, gather the information. And then once you get that information, then what's your outreach strategy, right? Asking questions. Well, what do you like? We're putting in a survey. We want to offer a new service. You can get it for free, or, all we have to ask for. And we talk about that at Wake Up all the time. We say that, okay, you're not paying us for services, but you're going to pay for us in data. And so in exchange for not paying, we're going to ask you all kinds of information because you're getting it for free. So, so there's always, oh, I don't want to do this, but I got to do that. But once again, if people aren't paying for something, but you still need to drive value and you still need to have intelligence about the market and your market segments, email is a way, once again, to get that next 2 and 3 levels down below just the data in terms of, wow, this had 5,000 shares, all these different things in terms of that will come across in terms of your analytics.
And what would you say is the most effective type of marketing, or does it vary by purpose? Email, versus social versus guerrilla?
Okay.
Anymore?
Wait, say that last part.
Is print even remotely effective?
That's an interesting question. So the part and this is interesting because over the years that I've worked, what really drives the mechanism really ties down to your personality, right? And your skill sets and what you have a tolerance for and what you enjoy. For instance, like people always say, the conversations like, well, should I market on Twitter, or should I engage Twitter, or should I get a Instagram handle, or should I go on Facebook? And because some people like, and not only that, also the product. Like for instance, if you're, we'll go real easy, low hanging fruit. If you have a food company, right? It totally, obviously, of course, makes sense to have an Instagram account because people want to see the food. That's just kind of like, that's just like a no brainer. But then depending on, if you have something else, like if you're a storytelling company, right? Let's say you're a storytelling consultancy, it might make more sense you go on Twitter and just you tweet. I mean, you might like, oh my God, that is so, in 140 characters, how are you telling stories, right? You got these zingers, or it's like, oh my God, that is so funny or entertaining, or they can link to other. So as a storytelling consultancy, and maybe it makes more sense to you to be on Twitter, but there's all these different types of things. Really, I think the two things, Juliana, I think that are for consideration is, number one, what type of personality do you have? Are you someone that wants to be on Instagram because you like whatever the case is? Or are you more of a Facebook person, or are you more like TikTok? I have a friend of mine, a gentleman, he's like 50, 51, and he's killing it on TikTok, right? So it's not even about how old you are. It's more so, and he's outgoing, gregarious.
Marketing to twins?
Say it again?
Is he marketing to tweens?
I'm not saying marketing. I'm just saying in terms of your personality. Like his personality is so much that he is comfortable with engaging in TikTok because that's his personality. Yeah. I'm just talking about your personality. Some people be like, oh my God, I don't, because TikTok is completely about entertainment, at least to this point, for the most part.
Yeah, you need dance skills to be on TikTok, is what it is.
Right, exactly. You love right. So if you're starting some type of activity which requires dancing or movement or something, right?
Yeah.
You probably love that. It makes sense to be on TikTok versus why would you're not going to want to market your dancing or activity that's actual physical movement on Twitter. That would make no sense.
Yeah. Like I can't picture a law firm on TikTok. Or maybe plus tweens, which is like their primary audience, not really, they don't have many legal problems.
Right. Exactly.
Doing tweens here.
Exactly, right. And so, so it just depends who you are, what you're selling. And it could just be that you use and it could be like, maybe you're doing maybe you want to get on there just to learn. I mean, there's things that, at some point, if it all goes well, TikTok will mature and evolve on some, and then you say, hey, I've been on it for X, Y. It's like back in the day when Twitter first hit, people were just like, what is this Twitter thing? And then it evolved and changed, and now, you got all kinds of folks that are using it, from politicians to
China
to authors, just whatever, all kinds of different folks are using it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you have a set amount of money to spend on marketing, right? Mm-hmm. And you have an e-commerce site, right? And you have two choices. You either buy an email list to market to this your e-commerce platform that focuses on handmade products and builders, right? Or you spend it all on social media advertising, or you spend it on guerrilla marketing, right? Going out and flyering the city. Mm-hmm. Or you spend it on, what's the other types? Print,
yeah.
We talked about email. Am I missing one?
Maybe, but I think we're in a good neighborhood in terms of.
Yeah. Okay. What do you pick? What's the winner?
What's the product, or what are we selling, or what are we trying to create awareness for?
It's an e-commerce site for handmade products.
For handmade products. Handmade. What was the email handmade? Okay, so yeah, what was the because when I think of handmade, that to me says people that are looking for something a little bit more around quality, right? It's not something that's going to be mass produced. It's someone that wants something a little bit unique. It makes me think of what's the I'm trying to think of the platform that does the oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind. But anyways, handmade. And something that, is going to be a very specific niche. So I would say that flyering is kind of like, that's just like, you want a broad awareness, right? This handmade product seems like that's something that a niche community would want. It's not something that everybody in the world So I would take off, I'll go through a process of elimination. I would take off the table the flyering. That would be the first one to take off the table. What are the other ones that you mentioned?
So the other ones are social media, email, and I think Gorilla. What we were
I would go with social media. I would go with social media because if it's a handmade product, I would imagine there's some level of artistry and craft in that. And you want to be able to, because that's what you're selling. You're selling, I would imagine, sort of a quality product. There's a lot of effort into it, and you want to be able to you want to document that. You want to speak to that. And if it's handcrafted, there's an art in how it's made. There's some care in terms of the materials that are chosen. I would imagine, that's my thinking. And you want to be able to display and discuss and talk about that. And to me, the best way to do that is picking a social media channel. You know, it could be a YouTube, or you could do a minute video on Instagram. But I think for me, that would make most sense, is because you look, once again, it goes back to the product. The product is something that there's some value in the details. It's very specific. And, and there's a little craft that I would imagine the person takes in putting it together, and they want that to be a part of the story. They want that to be a part of the experience. So the buzzer I'm going to hit, social media. That's what I'm going to go with.
Perfect. Okay, and I think we've gone over already, so I lost track of time.
Okay, yeah, no, my evening is open, so this has been great.
I'm so glad. Well, in that case, I'm going to ask you one last question.
Okay, sure, go for it. No worries.
Okay, so do you have any recommendations for people undertaking customer interviews? What questions might you formulate? And I think that's the end of the question.
Got it.
Let me give you examples. Let me contextualize it a little bit. Okay, so let's say you are selling local services, like local dog walking, local haircuts. I mean, it might be kind of hard to get on local dog walking now that I think about it, but you're just taking people to local services. Like, how might you start formulating customer interviews?
That's number one, first I would start with the interview. I would engage first I would go and find out who wants dog walking services, and I would just grab a customer, just figure out how you can do a dog walking expedition, so to speak. It doesn't matter. However, you need to finagle it or figure it out. You just need to go and go do a dog walking. And then right there, because that person needs that service, then that would be the first person I would interview. And then I would ask, well, why did you need dog walking services? Like what's going on in your life, or, whatever the case is. And it's like, oh, well, I'm busy, or whatever the case is. So the first is like, well, number one, why do you need a dog walking service? And then from there, that would be the first question I would ask. And once again, but before getting there, I would just figure out how to just, because then they're gonna be much more open to talking to you, because then, you say, well, I see you on dog walking service, and I would love to continue to, do you need extra services, or are there other days? And then you can find out, like, oh, actually, yeah, if you could do this twice a week, that would be great. It's like, oh, well, why on those 2 days? And then they can tell you. Then you can just go back and say, okay, this is what. So just find out an opportunity to just ask kind of just real, I would say, I don't know, basically the right way to put it, but just kind of questions that I think are logical, or put yourself in their shoes. Like, what is something that, if you're going on vacation and you need your house watched, so say, well, why do you need me to watch your house? Well, the air is, it's cold. I need to come turn the air on so that the pipes don't bust. And then just ask kind of logical questions from there on. But that would be the way I would ask some real basic questions. That the reason why you're doing it, because then that allows you to sort of get a foundation. And then from there, I think it's almost like a conversation. It's just like, you want to know about this person. Like, oh, okay, interesting. So, and then just, treat it as a conversation.
Should the questions be open-ended?
I think so. So. The question should be open-ended because your point is to learn. And what and this actually happens a lot in design thinking, which you are well aware of and you're extremely familiar. Be prepared for the unexpected, right? Don't go in because they could share some information like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. So when you ask open-ended questions, they could share information that you weren't even thinking about because number one, you're not living their life, right? You don't wake up in their bed, you don't go to their work, you don't go to parties with them. And so they might have a whole different set of experiences that you had no idea. And you're just like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And bam, you're just like, oh, snap. Okay, I didn't even think about that. So totally ask open-ended questions because that allows for learning. Because, if you look at Instagram, you do the research of Instagram, the people came out of Instagram, that was like a third tier project. That wasn't even their main project. They were pushing something else. And by accident and this, that, and the third, Instagram just jumped onto their radar and they pursued it. But it was completely by accident. Instagram really? wasn't a strategic play by any stretch of imagination. Say it again.
I just said, what a great accident. I wonder how many.
I would. If anyone, I would encourage folks, they can go even find, just say the history of Instagram or just research the founders. Instagram was not a strategic play. It was completely by accident. They were pushing some other product, which they were struggling with. And I think this was like, I forgot the specifics, but it wasn't their focus.
Yeah.
So if you have a dog walking, whatever you think the dog walking is happening and why, and you could still engage in the dog walking, but then the value or the new service or sort of the pain that you're eliminating might be something that you didn't even think about. Like, I didn't even think about that. So totally go back into your question. Yes, totally ask open-ended questions. I would be the only questions I would ask are open. I mean, you could add, some yes or no's for various reasons, but more open-ended questions versus others.
Right. Awesome. So that was my final question. Okay. I'm going to go back and view this and listen for every time you said, we can do a whole workshop on that. New list. I hope we get to collaborate more. And I love what you're doing at Wacif. And for those who are in Washington, D.C., Wacif is a tremendous resource for entrepreneurs. So please check them out.
Yeah, waicif.org. I'm a business advisor there. And thanks again, Juliana, for allowing me to come on. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. Enjoy it. And everything I said I could do a workshop. Yes, from my bio, I've done stuff from TEDx. I've helped develop products for media companies across the country. There's a lot of different experiences. And I first and foremost, I say I'm a student. I'm always learning. And any opportunity to learn and continue to engage in different audiences and see what different things are happening out there. Because like I said, what I presented today is a small corner of the crumb in the small corner of another crumb. And there's so much out there I don't know, and I'm constantly trying to learn. So any opportunity to collaborate with you and, continue this conversation, by all means, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again.
There's plenty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Stick around and we'll talk some more. Just you and
I. Definitely. Okay, well, have a good night. Okay, thanks everyone. Enjoy. Stay safe out there. Have a good evening.